They say time heals all wounds, but what they don't tell you is that sometimes time does the exact opposite. The longer she goes without hearing from you, the more it eats at her. Silence, when used right, can be the most powerful weapon you have. It's not about playing games, it's about creating space for her to feel the absence, so strongly that she starts to question everything. If you've ever wondered why pulling back works better than chasing, stay with me. We're diving deep into why the silence you're giving her might just be the loudest thing she's ever heard. Absence has a strange way of making people realize what they took for granted. When you're constantly available, it's easy for her to overlook what you bring to the table. But the moment you pull back, it forces her to confront a sudden void, one that she didn't even realize was there until you created it. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding a fundamental truth of human psychology. We crave what we can't have, and we value what's scarce. When you remove yourself from her daily life, you transform from something she's used to into something she misses. The longer you stay away, the more powerful this effect becomes. This phenomenon is deeply rooted in the psychology of scarcity. People place a higher value on things that are rare or at risk of being lost. It's why limited time offers make us rush to buy things we don't even need. The same principle applies in relationships. When she can no longer predict your next move or rely on your constant presence, you become a puzzle that she can't help but try to solve. This uncertainty creates a psychological itch that she can't scratch, making her replay past interactions, wondering what went wrong and, more importantly, what you're doing now. The less information you give her, the more her mind works to fill in the blanks, often imagining scenarios far more intense than reality. Absence also triggers a cognitive bias known as selective memory. When you're no longer around, her mind tends to minimize the negatives and amplify the positives of your time together. It's why people romanticize past relationships once they're over. By stepping back, you give her the time and space to remember the highlights, the laughter, the connection, the way you made her feel seen and understood. Even the arguments start to fade, replaced by memories that make her second guess if letting you go was a mistake. The longer this goes on, the stronger the emotional response becomes. But it's not just about making her miss you, it's about resetting the power dynamic. In many cases, guys make the mistake of being too available, too eager to fix things. This imbalance makes it easy for her to feel secure in pulling away, knowing that you'll always be there, waiting. When you do the opposite, when you step back without explanation, it's unsettling. Suddenly, she's the one wondering what went wrong, if you've moved on, or if you ever really cared at all. This reversal of roles isn't just a power move, it's a wake-up call. It forces her to confront her own feelings rather than distracting herself with the reassurance that you'll come running back. This isn't about making her suffer for the sake of it. It's about giving her the space to realize what she actually feels. Often, people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone, and by pulling back, you give her the gift of perspective. It's in those moments of silence, when she's lying awake at night or scrolling through her phone, that the reality of your absence starts to sink in. The memories become sharper, the loneliness more pronounced, and in that silence, she's left alone with one unavoidable question: did I make a mistake? This approach is powerful because it doesn't rely on words or explanations. In fact, explanations often weaken your position, making you seem desperate for her to understand your point of view. Silence, on the other hand, communicates confidence and self-respect. It says, I don't need to justify myself, which only makes her more intrigued. It leaves her wondering if you've moved on, if you're seeing someone else, or if you even cared at all. The uncertainty is what drives her to want answers, to reach out, to find a way to bridge the gap. But here's the catch. None of this works if your absence doesn't come from a place of genuine self-respect. If you're pulling back just to get a reaction, she'll sense it eventually, and the power of your silence will vanish. True confidence isn't about making her miss you. It's about recognizing your own worth, regardless of whether she does. When you internalize this, your absence isn't just a strategy, it's a reflection of the fact that you don't need her to validate you. Ironically, it's this very mindset that makes her question everything, that makes her start to feel the weight of the silence you left behind. And the longer that silence stretches, the more powerful it becomes. Days turn into weeks, and each day is a reminder that you haven't reached out, that maybe you're not coming back at all. This ticking clock creates urgency in her mind, a fear that the door might be closing for good, and it's in that uncertainty, that quiet realization of what she stands to lose, that your absence transforms into the most powerful presence of all. As time passes without a word from you, something unexpected starts to happen. She begins to question herself. At first, it might just be a fleeting thought, a passing curiosity about what you've been up to. But as days go by and the silence stretches, that curiosity turns into a lingering doubt, an uncomfortable realization that maybe she miscalculated your value. This self-doubt is powerful because it flips the script. Instead of you being the one chasing answers or seeking closure, she's the one left replaying every conversation, analyzing every detail, wondering if she was too quick to walk away. It's in this space of uncertainty that her emotions start to intensify, making her crave the reassurance that you're still within reach, even if she was the one who pulled back first. Human beings have a natural tendency to fill in the gaps when we lack information. It's why suspense in movies is so effective. Our minds can't resist trying to piece together what we can't see. When you go silent, you create that same kind of suspense in her mind. She starts to wonder if you're happier without her, if you moved on to someone else, or if you even care at all. This is where her imagination becomes your greatest ally. The scenarios she comes up with are often more dramatic than reality, making her feel a loss that's amplified by the stories she's telling herself. And the longer you hold your silence, the more time she has to build these stories into something bigger than what actually happened. Silence also has a way of stripping away distractions. In today's world, it's easy to numb emotions with social media, casual conversations, or the endless scroll of notifications. But when someone important goes quiet, it cuts through all that noise. No amount of distractions can fill the void left by someone who genuinely mattered. Even if she tries to mask it by going out more, posting pictures, or pretending everything's fine, there's always that moment when things go quiet again, when she's alone with her thoughts. And in that silence, the memories start to resurface. The way you used to talk late into the night, the inside jokes, the way your absence feels more real than anyone else's presence. This is where the concept of emotional triggers comes into play. Certain songs, places, or even phrases can bring back memories and emotions tied to you. The more she encounters these triggers without the closure of hearing from you, the more intense the feelings become. It's like a song that gets stuck in your head. The more you try not to think about it, the harder it is to escape. Each reminder of you becomes a small emotional hit, making her realize that the feelings she thought she'd moved past are still very much alive. And the worst part for her, not knowing if you're going through the same thing or if you've already moved on without looking back. But silence isn't just about making her miss you. It's about making her question her choices. When someone walks away and you immediately chase them, it confirms their decision. It tells them they were right to pull back because you're still there, waiting, willing to do anything to win them back. Silence, on the other hand, forces her to reconsider. It makes her wonder if she made the right call, if she misread the situation, if losing you was a bigger mistake than she realized. This doubt can be paralyzing because it's not just about losing you, it's about questioning her own judgment, something that strikes at the core of her confidence. The power of silence also lies in its ability to create a contrast. When you're always available, when you're constantly explaining yourself or trying to fix things, it becomes predictable. But when you go quiet, every small action becomes amplified. A like on her social media, running into you unexpectedly, or even just hearing your name. Suddenly, these things carry weight. It's the scarcity effect in action again. The less she knows about what you're doing, the more she cares. This unpredictability keeps her on edge, unable to settle into a new normal without you. There's also a psychological principle known as the Zeigarnik effect, which suggests that people remember incomplete tasks more than completed ones. By leaving things unresolved, you become that unfinished business in her mind. Every time she thinks she's moved on, a memory pulls her back, a reminder that things didn't end cleanly, that there are still things left unsaid. This lack of closure makes it nearly impossible for her to truly let go, creating a loop of thoughts that keeps bringing her back to you. What makes this so powerful is that it's a passive strategy. You're not reaching out, not explaining yourself, not trying to control the narrative. Your silence allows her to arrive at conclusions on her own, conclusions that are often far more favorable to you than anything you could have said directly. Because when someone reaches a realization on their own, it sticks. It feels more authentic, more true. And that's the real power of stepping back. It allows her to see what life is like without you, to feel the emptiness that your absence creates, and to realize that maybe, just maybe, she was the one who needed you all along. As more time passes, the impact of your silence only deepens. What starts as a mild discomfort for her soon evolves into a powerful sense of loss. This shift happens gradually, first as a quiet yearning, then as a more intense longing that's hard to ignore. The reason for this escalation is tied to a psychological phenomenon known as emotional investment. When someone invests time, energy, or emotions into a connection, the sudden absence of that connection creates a kind of emotional debt. In her case, your silence serves as a constant reminder of that unresolved debt, making her feel like something valuable was taken away too soon. At first, she might try to dismiss it. Maybe she tells herself you were never that important, that she's better off without you. But as the silence continues, those justifications start to crumble. Memories become sharper instead of fading. The way you laughed, the late-night conversations, even the smallest details start to resurface. It's in these moments that regret begins to take hold. She starts to question why she let things end so abruptly, why she didn't fight harder to keep you around. Regret is a powerful emotion because it doesn't just focus on the past. It forces her to reconsider the future. The thought of reaching out becomes more tempting because the silence makes her wonder if it's already too late, if you've moved on without looking back. What's interesting is how this silence can shift the power dynamics completely. When she first pulled away, she likely felt in control, confident that you'd eventually try to bridge the gap. But your silence disrupts that expectation. The longer you hold it, the more it forces her to confront the idea that she might have miscalculated. This role reversal is subtle but profound. Instead of you seeking validation, she becomes the one questioning if she ever truly mattered to you. This uncertainty creates an itch she can't scratch, a question she can't answer without breaking the silence herself. This is also where her ego comes into play. Pride can be a powerful barrier, especially for someone who isn't used to being ignored. The longer you remain silent, the more it challenges her sense of self-worth. She starts to wonder why you haven't reached out, if maybe you found someone better, if perhaps she wasn't as unforgettable as she thought. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about understanding how human psychology works. People want what they can't have, and the more she feels that door closing, the more desperately she wants to pry it back open. Meanwhile, this period of silence does something important for you as well. It gives you back your focus. Often, in the aftermath of a breakup or when someone pulls away, it's easy to become consumed with trying to fix things, to explain yourself, to win them back. But by embracing the silence, you shift that energy inward. You start investing in yourself, your goals, your passions, the things that make you a better, stronger version of who you were. This kind of self-improvement isn't just about keeping busy, it's about raising your value. When she eventually does reach out, she's not coming back to the same person she left. She's coming back to someone who's moved forward, who's grown in ways she didn't expect. And that makes all the difference. It's also worth noting how social media plays into this dynamic. In today's world, silence isn't just about not texting or calling. It's about resisting the urge to post things that hint at how you're feeling, to send indirect messages hoping she'll see them. True silence is about going dark, not in a way that seems bitter or passive-aggressive, but in a way that's confident, as if you're too busy living your life to worry about what she's doing. This kind of silence is deafening because it leaves no clues for her to follow, no way to gauge if you're hurting or if you've already moved on. The mystery becomes its own form of power, making her wonder what you're doing, who you're with, if you ever even think about her at all. Then there's the role of scarcity. When someone is always available, it's easy to take them for granted. But when they're suddenly gone, their value skyrockets. This is basic human psychology. We crave what's in limited supply. Your silence transforms you into that limited resource, someone who isn't easily accessible, who doesn't drop everything at the first sign of interest. This scarcity not only makes her miss you, but also makes her question what she's missing out on. It creates a fear of loss that's far more potent than any argument you could make or any text you could send. In this way, silence isn't just an absence of communication. It's a strategic move that creates space for her to feel your absence fully. It's about making her realize that the door might not stay open forever, that she could lose you for good if she doesn't act, and that fear of loss is often what compels someone to finally reach out, to try to fix things before it's too late. But even if she doesn't reach out, the power of silence still works in your favor, because at the end of the day, it allows you to regain control over your emotions, to detach from a situation that isn't serving you. It proves to yourself that you don't need to chase, that you're perfectly fine on your own. This kind of confidence isn't just attractive, it's unshakable. It shows that you're not afraid to walk away if you have to, that you understand your own worth. And whether she comes back or not, that's a victory in itself. As time stretches on, your silence starts to shift from being merely an absence to a powerful statement. It signals that you're not waiting around, that your life continues with or without her. This realization often hits harder than any words you could have said. Because when someone expects you to break, to reach out and try to fix things, your silence becomes an act of defiance. It shows emotional control, a quality that not only commands respect, but also creates intrigue. She begins to wonder if she underestimated you, if perhaps you're not as attached as she thought. This uncertainty can drive her to question everything about the situation, making her reconsider her choices and, more importantly, your value. The real strength of silence lies in what it forces her to confront about herself. When someone pulls away, it's usually with the expectation that you'll fill the void with apologies, explanations, or attempts to win them back. But when that doesn't happen, she's left alone with her thoughts, her doubts, and her insecurities. The silence becomes a mirror reflecting her actions back at her, making her wonder if she made a mistake, if she misjudged you, if she's really as confident in her decision as she pretended to be. This self-reflection is often what leads to regret, which can quickly transform into a desire to reach out and see if the door is still open. What's interesting is how this dynamic taps into a fundamental aspect of human psychology, the fear of missing out. The less accessible you are, the more she starts to imagine what you might be doing without her, who you might be with, what new experiences you might be having. This curiosity, combined with the fear that you might be slipping away for good, can become an overwhelming urge to reconnect. Even if she doesn't act on it immediately, the seed of that fear is planted, and the longer you remain silent, the more that fear grows, turning silence into a psychological trigger that keeps you on her mind. Your silence also has a way of highlighting the difference between attention and interest. A lot of people mistake the two, thinking that constant communication equals affection. But real interest is shown through actions, through someone's willingness to make an effort even when it's not convenient. By staying silent, you're forcing her to decide if she's truly interested or if it was just a matter of convenience. If she reaches out, it's a sign that she values the connection enough to swallow her pride. If she doesn't, then you have your answer without having to waste any more time or energy. Either way, your silence exposes the truth. In many cases, this period of silence leads her to test the waters subtly. Maybe she likes one of your posts or sends a vague text just to see how you'll respond. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're often a way of gauging if the door is still open without risking outright rejection. How you handle these tests is crucial. Responding too quickly or too eagerly can undo the power of your silence, making it seem like you were just waiting for her to give you a sign. On the other hand, maintaining your calm, measured responses, if you respond at all, reinforces the idea that you're not desperate for her attention, that you're perfectly fine on your own. And this brings us to the core principle of why silence works. It shifts the frame. Instead of you being the one trying to reestablish the connection, your silence makes her feel like she's the one who needs to do something to fix what's broken. This reversal of roles is powerful because it puts her in the position of seeking validation, of wondering if you'd even want her back. When she starts to feel like she's the one chasing, even subtly, it reignites the attraction. People naturally value what they have to earn, and your silence makes her feel like your attention is something that isn't given out easily. At the same time, the silence gives you something equally valuable, clarity. When emotions are high, it's easy to act impulsively, to say things you'll regret, or make decisions based on temporary feelings. Silence creates space to think things through, to evaluate if she's really worth the effort, or if you're just reacting out of habit or loneliness. It allows you to see the situation for what it is, without the noise of constant communication clouding your judgment. This clarity is what helps you move forward with confidence, whether she comes back or not. In the end, silence is a strategy that serves two purposes. It allows her to feel the loss of your presence fully and gives you the time to regain your sense of self-worth. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate her feelings. It's about demonstrating that your value doesn't depend on her validation. That kind of confidence isn't just attractive, it's liberating. It frees you from the need to chase, to explain, to convince. It proves that you're secure enough in yourself to let go if you have to, and that's the ultimate power move. So if you find yourself questioning whether you should break the silence, remember this: the right person will reach out if they truly care. And if they don't, then you've saved yourself from wasting time on someone who never really valued you to begin with. Either way, silence gives you the answer without you having to ask the question. If you found this insight valuable, make sure to subscribe for more strategies on mastering relationship dynamics and taking control of your worth. And don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.